Welcome to part 3 of my top 40 video game soundtracks. Before we get into it, there's one thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of part 1, which is that I would be excluding remastered soundtracks and games that use remixed versions or covers of songs from previous games in the series, or other games such as Smash Bros. If Smash was to be on the list anywhere, it would be solely based on the original music made for that specific game, and, well, you'll see in the honorable mentions list at the end of part 4, just saying. Other than that, you know the drill by now, or at least you should. If not, links to part 1 and 2 will be in the description. For everyone else, let's dance right in. To start off part 3, we're gonna get a little goofy. It's everyone's favorite Scrimblow Bimblow and dead franchise, Banjo-Kazooie. Ah, the glory days of Rareware were such a simpler time. Banjo's music is timeless, charming, and just plain enjoyable. From this wild and energetic main theme all the way through to the end of Banjo-Tooie, there isn't a bad song in sight. I love all of them, and yeah, I'm including both of them here because I can, just saying. Banjo's music does an excellent job of capturing the spirit of each stage, and encourages you to just enjoy yourself while you're there. These themes are dynamic as well, often changing their tone in real time depending on where you're currently at within a stage. Something I don't think is appreciated as much as it should be, and it's something 3D games like this should do more often. They do an excellent job with all these joyful vibes, but also know how and when to get more subdued, and occasionally surprisingly beautiful. The N64 Banjo games hold a special place in the hearts of many that played them in the late 90s, and without the iconic music they created for it, it probably would not have quite the same cult classic status it does today. And even though it had a quantity over quality problem, Donkey Kong 64 also had a lot of the same design philosophy, and is enjoyable for many of the same reasons. But the Banjo games were definitely Rareware's musical highlight of the 5th generation. This may sound impossible, but there is one game that I've probably spent more than 1,000 hours in, and the music never got old. Nope, nice try. As much as I love Skyrim's music and Oblivion's too, I haven't spent nearly as much time in those games as I have in Morrowind. Morrowind's soundtrack is very short considering the type of game it is. And not only that, it's technically split between its normal themes and combat themes. And due to the nature of the game's combat, you're unlikely to ever hear more than 5 to 10 seconds of each song. So if we were to cut those out, that leaves us with somewhere between 25 to 30 minutes of music, constantly looping over and over and over as you venture out into the dour and alien landscape of Vardenfell. And yet, it just works. The music is so atmospheric and subdued that it never intrudes on your adventure, never takes a front seat to the story you are creating with your character, and somehow magically never feels out of place, no matter where you are in the game. I'd love to put this soundtrack higher on the list because of this, but it's just so goddamn short. Like, if they had maintained the same level of quality with a much longer soundtrack, I probably wouldn't hesitate to put it in the top 5. Regardless, Jeremy Soul's music will always be legendary. Disgaea. A very bizarre series that actually isn't quite known for its music, probably because in the hundreds of hours of optional post-game grinding you're meant to do, it's probably more common to just mute the music and listen to something else while you play. But I think that's a bit of a shame, because many of the early game's themes encapsulate the bombastic absurdity, the shark-jumping action, and the emotional roller coaster ride that the games tend to have. For example, the first Disgaea game has music that really defines what this ridiculous game is all about, without outright telling you. And Disgaea D2 adds to it, with an incredible final boss theme, one of my all-time favorites. But to this day, Disgaea 2 still stands tall above the rest. Disgaea 2's music just hits differently than the rest of the series in all the right ways. Gone is the spoofy, wannabe Halloween style of the first game's soundtrack, and instead we get some high-energy synth and occasional jazz-infused JRPG goodness, but it also knows how to express its own goofiness in its own way. This song got stuck in my head off and on for years after I played it. The game also has new renditions of the first game's songs as well to fit the returning characters as well as the overall universe. But it's the new songs that really take the spotlight here, especially the ones you hear in battle. Not to mention the absolute J-rock earworm that is the former Dark Hero Axel's theme. I love the songs in Disgaea 2 so much. It's part of why I want this game to get an updated remaster like the first game did. While recording the footage of this video, I ended up playing it all night through Chapter 8. It's one of the best in the series, but after playing all the newer ones, there's a lot that could be updated to make it amazing. But that's another topic. Enjoy the best main theme in the series. I was a kid, this shit sent chills down my spine. I can only imagine getting this kind of atmosphere on a 4th generation console was a bit of an undertaking, but damn, did they really pull it off with Super Metroid. I honestly don't think Super Metroid would be revered as the masterpiece it is today without its music. This title theme alone tells you everything you need to know about what's in store for you. Then, you start the game. This bass-driven introduction is the perfect track for Samus's exposition about the previous 2 games' events, and reflects perfectly what the entire game is about. Samus's return to planet Zebes is going to be a descent into the unknown, the dark, cavernous underground of the space pirate's base, thought to be completely destroyed during her first trip there in the original Metroid. When you arrive and explore the remains, it's a desolate, lifeless wreck. That is, until you get your first ability, the Morph Ball, and you get spotted by a security camera, and the caves suddenly come to life, as well as the music. Shortly after, you discover what seems to be a haven for life in the form of Brinstar, with one of the catchiest themes in the series. Super Metroid is one of the most well-designed games ever for its time, and its music is no exception. It was this game that brought us the iconic theme for Ridley. A fitting song with steadily changing time signatures to represent one of the most cunning and dangerous antagonists of the series. Though admittedly, this song's future renditions far outclass this one, as the Super Nintendo's audio limitations don't do it justice, which also kind of applies to every song in this game, but for its time, it was the best. That was made by Nintendo at least, just saying. Regardless, Super Metroid's soundtrack will always be awesome, and I believe the song I'll play out this entry with represents its environment perfectly. I briefly hinted at it in the last entry, but there's one more Super Nintendo game on this list. What's interesting is that while it does have the best music on the 16-bit system, it wasn't even made by Nintendo themselves. That's right, I'm talking about the Donkey Kong Country games. Trying to decide between the three games was fairly difficult, as they all have their merits, and I love them all, but they also have three different overall styles to them that makes them difficult to compare. Eventually, I ruled out the original Donkey Kong Country first. It's the shortest of the three and only has a few songs that really stand out in my opinion. That leaves the second game, which is definitely the most thematic. And the third game, which has some chill vibes and the best sound quality out of any Super Nintendo game I've ever played by a long shot. I love them both so much, but if I have to pick one, it's gotta be Donkey Kong Country 2. The music of this game was masterfully composed to convey the sort of energy the many diverse locations have in Captain K. Rool's treacherous pirate hideout of Crocodile Isle. It's almost like each song has its own story to tell, from the heavy funk of the hot volcano, to the gloomy beauty of a misty forest of thorns. And all the piratey goodness of the game's most prominent theme. This game's music is timeless, and what Rareware did to make these games' soundtracks sound so good on such weak hardware of the early 90s was nothing short of spectacular. and the final boss theme of this game kicks a surprising amount of ass. Easily one of my favorite final boss themes. Oh yeah, this is Diddy Kong's game, and it has a pirate theme, so they even went the extra mile and made the perfect song to monkey around like a pirate to.
They are rage, brutal, without mercy. But you will be worse. Rip and tear, until it is done.
Do I even need to explain this one? What better way is there to shred through a pile of demons in the most savage way possible than doing it to some incredible pulse-pounding electronic heavy metal? Even though the games are still fairly new, the music in 2016's Doom is iconic for good reason. When I played it, I was honestly pretty bad at it. It's not easy, but just give it a little time to get into the flow of things until slaughtering demons one after another makes it feel like you're playing a rhythm game, and the incredible music that blasts during the more intense fights forces you to get back up, keep playing, and kick some ass. When Doom Eternal came out, I thought there was no way they were going to top the music of 2016, and as I began playing it, it seemed I was right. But then this happened. shit, I love this song. But that's just one song out of a whole soundtrack. But then it happened again. God damn, it's so hard to pick which one I like more. If I really had to pick one, I'd say the first one has a more consistently good soundtrack, but Eternal has some absolute standout thrashers as well. Not only that, even when the games aren't in godly shredding mode, the suspenseful atmospheric tracks in between capture the desolation the forces of hell left in their wake. Think of them as the calm before the storm. That is you. This is a very easy one to explain. The Talos Principle. To put it simply, this game's soundtrack is almost entirely atmospheric, ethereal music that is incredibly enjoyable to listen to even when you're not playing the game. The soft and methodical piano melodies, the gentle strings, the haunting chorus, the sparse Egyptian-style drums, and more make up this absolutely beautiful soundtrack. It's the kind of music that can make you feel like you're in a trance, or help you relax. But in-game, it takes the surreal simulated puzzle world you're in and brings it to life. Almost. It's like the music is trying to hint towards something on its own, and actually helps give the game a very subtle, unsettling feeling. I don't want to say more than this, as you should experience this incredible game yourself. Damjan Mravunak. This guy did an excellent job blessing the game with the wonderful and haunting auditory experience it deserves. I'm surprised I've gone this far down this list without talking about the great Motoi Sakuraba, a man who cranks out long soundtracks for long games on a surprisingly frequent basis, often doing more than 2 every year, and still finds time to make his own original music. A man who is greatly inspired by one of my favorite genres of music, progressive rock, which is often seen directly in his compositions, and it served him well in creating the music for the next entry on the list, Golden Sun. I love and greatly miss this series. It's such a shame that it's been blatantly ignored by Nintendo after all these years, despite having an unresolved cliffhanger of a story, and lots of untapped potential for storytelling and gameplay with its established universe. That aside, Golden Sun really surprised the gaming community with its high-quality sound design and catchy, expressive music on the very limiting hardware that was the Game Boy Advance. Arguably the best music on that system's entire catalog, and somehow, they managed to top it a year later with Golden Sun: The Lost Age. To put it into perspective, Golden Sun: The Lost Age is a direct sequel using the same engine and many of the same assets. That includes some of the first game's music. However, despite all that, and only coming a year later, they included around 60 new original songs in the game, while the first game had around 44. Though they were meant to be one larger game that was split into two, it's still kind of insane to think about how much content they included with this second game, such as the absolutely massive overworld with its many diverse locations, which means many diverse and very fitting themes for each, such as the South Asian-inspired Champa, or the dark, evocative night theme of the Wolfman village, Garrow. Or the time-worn melancholy of the isolated, mysterious ancient city of Lemuria. The music of this game really gives you the feeling of being a world traveler, but the zone themes that really take the cake are the ones that play once you arrive at your ultimate destinations. These themes really help make the journey worthwhile. You can really hear the progressive rock influence in all of Golden Sun's more intense tracks like this one, and it's astonishing how frequently Motoi Sakuraba puts out consistently brilliant, complex music like this. The place where it's most obvious is in the battle themes, which includes another final boss theme that's powerful, chaotic, and a piece of musical genius, like when I talked about Marx's theme in Part 2. Compared to this one, however, following the time signature of Marx's theme is nothing. This next one is another easy one. Consider everything I said about the previous entry. Now have the same composer work with a greater sound quality and make a longer soundtrack for an RPG on a home console. Yep, Valkyrie Profile 2's soundtrack basically sounds like what would have happened if Golden Sun was on a home console instead of a handheld. It has the beautiful ambience for some of the game's locations. And the similar prog rock goodness that graces the more intense songs. With one of my favorite regular battle themes. While this soundtrack doesn't have quite the chaotic time signature changing songs, it still offers a high quality, magical, and catchy set of music. There's really not much else to say on this one, but I should mention that Motoi Sakuraba has several original albums that are worth checking out if you like his musical style in games. His 1991 album, Gikyo Kuonso, offers a good representation of what kind of music inspired his video game compositions, and that includes Golden Sun, Valkyrie Profile 2, and probably some of the Tales of games. But Valkyrie Profile 2 stands out to me as one of his best works, and it couldn't have been more fitting for such a surprisingly beautiful PlayStation 2 game. If anything on my list is going to start an argument in the comments, it's this one. Ironically enough, Mario. Out of all the entries on this list so far, this one was by far the most difficult. And I know what you're thinking, but hear me out. In order to pick one game that represents the best of the series, I included every single Mario spin-off out there, which means there was a huge amount of games to choose from. At the end of it, I had like 7 that I picked out that I couldn't decide on, so I asked around to see what people thought was the best Mario or Mario spin-off game with the best soundtrack. Most people said Mario Galaxy, which was not surprising, but it's the 3D Mario game I've played the least, and I didn't expect the answers to be so near unanimous on that because I didn't even have it as one of my 7 choices. And before you get your pitchforks ready, don't worry. I did the right thing and sat down and re-listened to Mario Galaxy, as well as everything else I had: Super Mario World, Yoshi's Island, whose inclusion is debatable, but we'll not get into that for now, Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, Paper Mario, Luigi's Mansion, Mario Kart Double Dash, Mario Kart 8, and Super Mario Odyssey. And what I found was that, wow, Mario Galaxy's soundtrack is great, and much better than I remember. However, there's also Mario Galaxy 2, very similar to Mario Galaxy 1, but I think has a bit more variety to it. If someone were to tell me that their favorite is a toss-up between both of them, I wouldn't be all that surprised. In fact, I think I like Galaxy 2 just a little bit more. But I have to admit, when these games aren't going all out with their grand, sweeping, adventurous, orchestrated music, Nintendo's other music from this general era really, really sucks. You know the ones. The hyper, noisy, obnoxious songs that I've already expressed distaste for in Part 2, and some of it made its way into both Galaxy games. And, while I do like the orchestrated music, there was always something that felt off about it to me, and I could never put my finger on what that was. That is, until I heard the music of what my real choice for this entry is. Oh, I know, this might rustle some jimmies, but you can suck my bing bing wahoo because Super Mario Odyssey is everything a modern Mario soundtrack should be and then some, and it's a celebration of anything and everything Mario. This urban jazzy theme for New Donk City, I think, captures the essence of what Mario is as a game, as well as who Mario is as a character. A goofy Italian plumber from an American city who looks kinda Mexican, who jumps higher than a black man, who saves a privileged white girl from an evil ginger turtle. Cancel me, motherfuckers, I stole this shitty joke anyway, just saying. Oh yeah, this game's soundtrack is also easily the most diverse we've ever seen in a Mario game, with some cool rock tracks for the more intense parts, like the one you're hearing now. The game achieves what Banjo-Kazooie did, and while it doesn't have as much real-time changing dynamic music moments, it makes up for it in variety with tons of unique music for each of its wild and diverse stages. The first level, Bonneton's music, fits its fancy night theme perfectly, and sounds like something straight out of Luigi's Mansion. But the next song was one of the ones that solidified this entry for me. It's in a similar vein to Mario Galaxy's music actually, But if you take a listen to this song next to any of Galaxy's themes, there is a stark difference. This song does everything any of Mario Galaxy's themes do, but better. Fight me. This song makes up for the lack of bass tones in many of Galaxy's treble-heavy songs with a booming, rich sound, with a lot more going on with its instrumentation, fusing its sweeping orchestra with primitive instruments to create the perfect song for a beautiful stage with prehistoric themes. The rest of the game's music works very well too, which includes two very underrated Bowser battle themes in my opinion. I love that subtle electric guitar in the orchestra, really hits the mark for this fight. Odyssey's soundtrack is a masterpiece, wild and catchy in all the right ways, with a diverse selection of music, including 8-bit versions of almost every stage zone theme for when Mario goes 2D, and acts as a celebration of the history of the series, most evident in the one song that comes to mind first whenever you think of this game. Take it away, Pauline.
Spin the wheel, take a chance. Every journey starts a new romance. A new world's calling out to you. off the rails. But you know it's time to raise our sails. It's freedom life you never